I think it helps massively because we have revenue in our title and our mission is to drive revenue, to drive growth for the organization. And a lot of that is working cross-functionally with financial stakeholders and partners, collaborators, everything from when you're planning headcount, compensation design, budgeting, building business cases, building forecasts, all involves working with finance and having a solid understanding of how budgets are created, how finance is responsible for driving certain ratios and CAC. And so it's massively helpful.
This is Sales Ops Demystified, the number one most downloaded podcast in sales operations. We invite the brightest minds in sales ops onto the show to deconstruct the what, why, and how behind rep productivity, forecasting, metrics, and all things revenue. This podcast is brought to you by Ebster, a revenue intelligence platform used to identify risk in the pipeline and score customer engagement, and is sponsored by the Global Sales Operations Association and the UK Revenue Operations Network. Hello, and welcome to another very special episode of the Sales Ops Demystified podcast. Today, we're joined by Cyndi Dozal, who is the Senior Director of Revenue Operations at ChowNow. Cyndi, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So first question from me is, how did you initially get the inspiration or the drive to join the world of sales/RevOps?
Yeah. So I'm going to go all the way back to when I was a young college grad from undergrad. I always wanted to be in business and was very interested in analysis and business decision making, using data to drive decisions, having impact on an operations of a company, of a corporation. Actually, I always wanted to be in the world of corporate finance. So got my degree in finance, graduated, started working in Silicon Valley in the tech industry and in the FP&A role, and then moved into operational finance, which is more focused on business modeling, business forecasting, working with the business stakeholders, or rather really the end decision makers and the inputs into our financial model. Love that. Love the fact that I was making more of a direct impact on the operational decision making and running the business, helping to run the business. Primarily supported sales and marketing teams. And so from there, I was, because I was responsible for building a lot of models, I eventually started working with cross-functionally with a lot of different teams from product in terms of product metrics, BI teams in terms of creating business requirements for all the dashboards that the stakeholders needed to gain information on operations, and was recruited to work more directly in the sales and marketing ops and analytics role. And so that's how I kind of went from finance and modeling more on the RevOps, Sales Ops, Marketing Ops side.
So was ChowNow the first official sales/RevOps role that you've had?
Not quite. I think RevOps as a function, as a official title, really popped up probably more recently. But I would say even about 10 years ago, I was with a company who just went through an acquisition, but previously was Connexity and was recently acquired by Taboola. And I was also working under, at the time, it was called Emergent Operations, Senior Manager of Business Operations. But it was really the RevOps role, the Sales Ops role that you know now. And since then, I've still been primarily responsible. I've been to a couple of roles where the title was more around operations and business analytics, but because they sat in sales and marketing org, the responsibilities and the functions really centered around the customer lifecycle, from sales enablement to post-live customer churn analysis. So I would say functionally as a title, yes, this current role is the first RevOps title I've had, but from a experience and scope of responsibility standpoint, I've really been in RevOps for the last 10, 15 years.
Sure, makes sense. The grounding in finance that you have, how much does that help you now in the current role? And would you recommend other people within sales or RevOps in the earlier stages of their career get exposure to the finance side?
I think it helps massively because we have revenue in our title, and our mission is to drive revenue, to drive growth for the organization. And a lot of that is working cross-functionally with financial stakeholders and partners, collaborators, everything from when you're planning headcount, compensation design, budgeting, building business cases, building forecasts, all involves working with finance and having a solid understanding of how budgets are created, how finance is responsible for driving certain ratios and CAC. And so it's massively helpful. Now, in terms of starting out in finance, there's definitely different paths to RevOps. And I think it's important that the collaboration and the knowledge of financial planning analysis is there from your experience. So I encourage everyone interested in RevOps from maybe the more lower entry level roles to get their hands dirty and start modeling and working directly with their financial business partners. That's the best way to get a solid grounding. As you rise in responsibility and scope, you're not necessarily going to have as much bandwidth to get into some of the monthly forecasting and modeling. That's very time intensive because your scope of responsibility is larger. It's not just modeling. It's not just compensation or forecasting. Now it's enablement. That now it's like Salesforce workflows and operations and providing business requirements and long range strategic planning. So my recommendation is you don't have to start off in finance, but I encourage you at the earlier stages of your career to get a solid ground understanding of finance and modeling and budgeting.
Totally agree. And I've spoken to many other guests about their experience in sales and how that helps them interact with their sales counterparts. And what I think you're saying here is that if you understand what your finance counterparts are doing because you've had exposure to it before, you're going to have a much more effective working relationship with them.
Yeah, definitely. I really, 20 years later, in every analytics or any business role you're in, you're going to be responsible for P&L or a cost budget or headcount and ROI analysis, vendor analysis on contract licenses, and being able to capitalize a very expensive implementation. Having that grounded knowledge helps you build a business case, for instance, to hire professional services or sign a new tool that the revenue tech team really needs in our tech stack or the MarTech tech stack. So I definitely think I use it even very regularly. I think in the current stage of my career, it's mostly outputs, but I certainly enjoy diving into a good model and understanding drivers. And it's sometimes therapeutic to work in Excel and dig into the financial ratios.
Mm-hmm. So can we zoom in a little bit now on the ChowNow revenue function? How many reps are you supporting, both on sales and customer success, and how many people do you have in your RevOps team?
Yeah. So on the sales side, we have 3 teams. It's roughly about 100 reps. So we have inside sales, field sales, outside sales, and we have strategic sales, which is a new team that I helped launch last year in November, focused more around the 10 plus location brands. ChowNow historically has focused on local restaurants. Our mission is to help local restaurants thrive. But with kind of the changing landscape and consolidation of platforms, online service platforms, we're also finding larger teams. There's just a lot of opportunity there. In terms of customer service, we have a fairly large organization. On the post-sales performance management side, have maybe about 30 and another 30 or so around the onboarding customer experience. So RevOps really covered the pre-sales from the sales rep to onboarding, operations reporting, compensation to kind of both sides. So the full cycle here. We do have a separate my counterpart in growth marketing operations, SDRs, marketing, B2B counterparts that I work with. And that org is about 30 as well. And then lastly, from a customer client success, customer support. So our performance managers are dedicated performance manager for each account. They're high touch. And then we have the lower touch, more generalized customer client success teams where you can call in and get support 24 hours, 24/7. And with our offshore resources, I would say that's probably about 300.
Got it. Wow. Yeah. And so are all of those individuals reporting into you, including the marketing ops team?
No, our direct team is about 10, supporting the different orgs. But the marketing team, client success, onboarding, and post-performance management teams are part of the revenue org that I support.
Got it. And what has been something that you guys, the RevOps team, have achieved in 2021 that you're particularly proud of?
I think in terms of achieving, I'm proud of so many things, but I think just to give it a little bit of context, when I started at ChowNow, RevOps about 2 years ago, RevOps was a new function. Now they had different individuals. ChowNow was very much smaller back then. We're about twice the size now and growing. A lot of that growth was driven in 2020 with the event of COVID and a massive spike in our client base. So we grew the RevOps team from 2 to 10 plus currently, and we're continuing to adjust to the changing landscape. And I would say in terms of what we're really proud of is just surviving COVID and pivoting with COVID and launching one of our newer initiatives, which is Marketplace, our B2C, helping to support our B2C campaigns in our marketplace. We had our field sales teams going to two new markets to launch our marketplace products, increase our brand awareness, our B2C consumer app awareness. And so that was spun up, I believe, about 2 months from inception to actually the reps being in market. And then very quickly we had to, as a RevOps team, has to create all of the training and collateral, work with the product teams to define the requirements, work with the growth marketing team to spin up B2C campaigns in the market in collaboration with the reps being on the street, as well as deal with COVID restrictions and changing landscape. And lastly, not the least, there was territory planning and compensation adjustments that's necessary for spinning up kind of the two of the first test markets, but two of the first initiatives that ChowNow has tackled to date.
And then I'd also like to cover quickly the strategic team that you guys set up. Was that something that you did the RevOps team analyze this opportunity and then you went to leadership saying, I think we should spin up a sales function for these larger 10 plus sites? Where did that come from? And what has been like a crucial part of the creation of that team?
So I was hired by the SVP of sales about a month or two. So he was the one who really brought the RevOps function, formalized the RevOps function at ChowNow. And I worked very closely with him. So we had inside sales and outside sales, and we would analyze it and track sales performance and our win rates and our close loss reasons and why we were losing certain deals and what the opportunities were for larger chains. And what was became apparent in that tracking and productivity was that there was a gap in the strategic area, the strategic accounts area. As I said, ChowNow's initial mission, even now as we go through transformation, was really focused on SMB, the small local businesses, and a lot of our product features were not fitting of the strategic team. So it came out of a collaboration with the sales leadership that we really needed reps who knew how to sell to larger strategic accounts, because we would get referrals, we would get inbounds for larger brands, and both our product and our sales collateral and our sales pitch was not tailored to these very large relocations. I can recall a 200 plus convenience brand that wanted to onboard with us. And from the deal desk, custom pricing, to which rep would handle it, to how we transition it to 2 different onboarding and post-live account managers, was a very manual and customized, somewhat confusing process because we didn't have a team dedicated to it. So it came out of kind of those discussions, and we did analyze the market opportunity, potential clients in collaboration with finance. And we decided to launch the team. And with the launch of the strategic team, operationally, we also have strategic onboarding resources as well as strategic performance managers dedicated so that they could work collaboratively with the rep team to strategic sales reps to make sure that we had a seamless onboarding and retention workflow.
Awesome. And what is a big focus for the rest of 2021 for the RevOps team?
A huge focus is definitely pivoting. I think we have some new products coming. We have some new sales strategies that we like to implement in response to our learnings from first half of 2020. As I said, we recently launched a marketplace initiative operations. That team is growing, and we completed our first 2 test markets, and we're just finishing the onboarding, and we will be helping to measure the impact of those test markets, the new clients that we onboarded, the learnings from that, and also with that, working on the system and workflow optimizations that we've learned from those markets to continue to scale the marketplace operations and go into future markets for the latter part of 2021. We also have some system implementations that we'll be supporting. Part of RevOps is tools, as I mentioned, from vendor management and tool training and tool optimization, workflow optimization. So we have a compensation tool and also some Salesforce system updates that we will be supporting in the goal of scaling the business, making the business more efficient and workflows more efficient for our internal clients.
Beautiful. And my final and most important question, Cyndi, is who in the world of RevOps would you most like to take for lunch?
I would love to take Hillary Ito from Zoom out to lunch and catch up with her. She actually used to work with my SVP of sales, and if anything, I think the world definitely knows Zoom from professional to personal to my kids' school. I don't know how many Zoom sessions I've been on in the last year and a half. So I love to take her out to lunch and learn more about just the dramatic growth at Zoom, how she scaled, and her personal experience in RevOps, and how she grew her career into, a very impressive, head of revenue operations for such a recognizable brand that really, I would say, probably the last 2 years went from just the growth is incredible from the last few years. COVID helped, but definitely brought them to the front. But they were a great player even before the COVID. But I think they became just absolute essential, and they kept that placement during COVID. There were a lot of online ordering providers in our industry that entered and has since left. But Zoom has kept their kind of market leadership, and I'd love to chat with her further about that.
For sure, Cyndi. Thank you for coming on and being so open and honest with everything that you're doing at ChowNow. It sounds like a very dynamic environment with the new things you're doing, all this stuff that's happening in 2021. But it was great to get an inside scoop into what is actually happening in a fast-moving RevOps function. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sales Ops Demystified podcast. If you are listening on a podcast listening application, then please subscribe, rate, and review. And if you have any questions about the show, if you know a guest, or if you have any questions about sales operations, just hit me up at tomhunt@ebster.com. That's tomhunt@ebster.com.